This week's Parshas, the portion of Vayigash, after Binyamin is accused, the youngest son of Yaakov, of stealing the goblet of the viceroy, Judah enters into a very strong dialogue to point out that the goblet was planted, and although the viceroy is displaying a certain compassion and kindness and persona of somebody who only wants to do good, the way he's depicting the viceroy, Judah, by recounting everything from the very beginning, that initially there was a sinister intent to have the youngest child of Yaakov come and to retain him as a slave. So when he recounts all what had happened from the first time they met and how initially they resisted bringing Binyamin, the youngest son of Yaakov, Vanomer Ladoni, Judah says to Yosef, to the viceroy, and we said to my master, Yesh lanu of zokein, v'yeled zekunim koton, and he's a child of his old age, who's the youngest. He refers to Binyamin as Yeled Zekunim. So over here, the Balaturim, when he writes the words Yeled Zekunim, he writes Choser, the word Zekunim, the Vav is deleted. Lomar, Shemoslo Komashe Lomad Mizikenim, Dainu Shem Ve'ever. What is it alluding to? When he's saying he's Yeled Zekunim, that all that he had studied in the yeshiva Shem Ve'ever, he had taught his youngest son Binyamin. Therefore, it's written deleted Zekunim, to indicate that all the Torah he had learned from the elders. Who were the elders? Shem Ve'ever. At the beginning of the portion of Vayeshev, the Torah tells us Yisrael Avas Yosef. Yisrael loved Yosef Mikol Bonov. Ki ben Zekunim ulo. He's ben Zekunim. So Rashi over there cites the Aramaic, the Targum of Zekunim, Bar Chakim ulo. He was the wisest of his children, and therefore all that he had learned in the Yeshiva Shem Ve'ever, all the Torah he had transmitted to Yosef. Therefore, this is Ki ben Zekunim alo. So the same way as Rashi over there cited the Targum, Zekunim means ben Zekunim. He's the wisest, and therefore, because he was the wisest, he had transmitted all the Torah that he learned in Shem Ve'ever. Similarly, the Balaturim is explaining Zekunim is written Choser, with the Vav deleted, to indicate that he had taught Binyamin all that he had studied from the elders, from the Zekanim. Who are the Zekanim? Shem Ve'ever. So we see what he had taught Yosef, he had taught Binyamin. When Yosef was sold into slavery, Binyamin was a small child. He was a small child. So at that time, he already had taught and transmitted all the Torah that he had studied from Shem Ve'ever. So we'd ask then, why did he teach Yosef? It seems to be he taught Yosef that Torah. Regardless of the greatness of the other Shvatim, that Torah was not taught to the other Shvatim, to the other sons. Only this particular Torah was taught to Yosef. Ki ben Zekunim could have said he taught him Torah. No, he taught him the Torah of the Zekanim. So what we had explained was that the role of the Bnei Rochel and the role of the Bnei Leah is a different role. The children of Rochel, the children of Leah, it's a different role. What is the role of the children of Rachel. It's to dominate the physical for the sake of the spiritual. Yosef hu mashbir. Yosef was the sustainer. Yosef set the setting and created the infrastructure for Klal Yisrael to go into Golus Mitzrayim to begin the exile in Egypt, that they should be able to survive the exile and ultimately be at a point where they could ascend to Sinai to receive the Torah and become the Am Hashem. That was Yosef's function. To prepare Mitzrayim, to prepare Egypt, to elevate them, or whatever was necessary to guarantee the spirituality of Klal Yisrael. That was, therefore, it's Yisrael Avos Yosef, Kolbano. Yisrael, who is the representation of the spiritual patriarch of Klal Yisrael, he loved Yosef. Yosef ki ben skunim. He's the wisest. He's the most capable. He's the lahava. He's the flame that consumes the material, that represents physicality. This is Yosef. But why the Torah that he'd studied in Shem Ve'aver? Why didn't he teach that Torah to the others? We'd asked. Yaakov was 63 years old when he took the brachos. He took the blessings. And he had to flee from his brother, Esau, because he vowed to kill him. Before he fled to Lavan, for 20 years, he went to Shem Ve'aver to study Torah for 14 years. Yaakov is Tam Yoshiv Oholim. Yaakov is the man of the tent of Torah. His whole life he was dedicated to Torah. Why now at this point did he have to go to Shem Ve'aver to study an additional 14 years? So evidently the Torah that he studied all the years was not the Torah that he studied in Shem Ve'aver. Was not that Torah. What was the Torah that he had to study in Shem Ve'aver? Yaakov never believed that he would ever have to leave the confines of Eretz Yisrael, which is Eretz HaKadosha, which is the spiritual land. He never believed he'd have to go into exile, similar to his grandfather, Avraham Avinu. His father never left Eretz Yisrael. Yitzchak never left the confines of Eretz Yisrael. The Midrash tells us that Yitzchak leaving the confines of Eretz Yisrael is the equivalent of taking a sacrifice out of the confines of the sanctuary in the Beis HaMikdash, which invalidates it. So he felt, he believed, that just as his father never left, he wouldn't have to leave. So all the Torah that he had studied to advance his spirituality was a Torah which had relevance only to Eretz Yisrael. Torah's Chutz La'aretz, the Torah that has relevance to deal with all the issues which exist outside of Eretz Yisrael, that Torah he never studied. He had to go now to study that from Shem Ve'aver. He had to study that from Shem Ve'aver. Shem Ve'aver, they lived pre-Great Flood. How to contend with all the evil influences of existence, they were the experts in what Torah was needed. This Torah that he had studied in Shem Ve'aver, he communicated only to Yosef. Why? Because who's responsible for Golus? Who's responsible to protect us in exile from the influence of exile? This is Yosef. So what does Yosef need? In what area does he have to become adept? How to confront all the influences of exile, all the impurity of exile, the impurity of Egypt. He needs that Torah. Therefore, Yosef was the only one who was qualified, who had the capacity to use that Torah to create that environment that's necessary for us to survive the exile. But what was Yosef's power? There was nothing innate in Yosef, although he was the firstborn of Rachel. But factually, he was Ben Rachel. He was the son of Rachel. Who's Binyamin? Binyamin's also Ben Rachel. He's the son of Rachel. Rachel's children represent the children of Yaakov who have the ability to dominate the material. To dominate the material. So now that Yosef is no longer alive, especially now, so which one of his children are going to deal with the influences of material at every level? It's Binyamin. Therefore, Yehuda is saying to Yosef, to the viceroy, Yel Zukunim, Zekunim is written with the Vav deleted. All that he had studied in Shem Ve'ever from the Zekanim, from the elders, this is what he communicated to Binyamin. Then he says, he concludes, he says, if I should return to my father, your servant, my father, and the lad is not with us, v'nafsho kshura b'nafsho, his soul is bound up with his soul. And therefore, my father will not survive it, he will die. If he sees we don't bring back his youngest child, because nafsho kshura b'nafsho, his soul is bound up with his soul. So the Baal HaTurim says on kshura, b'gematria Torah. The word kshura numerically and Torah is the same numerical value. Sholomad mipiv Torah. Nafsho kshura mi nafsho means the Torah that he had studied from his father. Now, which Torah? He studied Torah with all his children. If Binyamin does not return, which means he believes that he was taken captive and he doesn't know what his end will be, he will die. Because his soul is bound up with his soul. Kshura. What is the connection? What is the binding element? But why him more than the other children? Which Torah are we speaking about? This is Yeled Zekunim. This is the Torah Shem Ve'ever. If Binyamin is in jeopardy, and there's no representation of Bnei Rachel, Rachel's children are no longer here, who will contend with all the influences of exile that the other children should be able to survive it? The only way we're able to survive the exile is only through the children of Rachel. So we have Kshura is Torah. And which Torah is the Torah of the Zekanim, Zekunim? Ki ben Zekunim, Yeled Zekunim alo. He was the youngest. Yosef was called Ben Zekunim. Binyamin is called Yeled Zekunim. Yeled is a child. Of course, he was the younger of the two sons of Rachel. He's Yeled Zekunim. Yosef is Ben Zekunim. So therefore, so why won't he be able to survive it, Yaakov? Not because another son, Chas v'Sholom, disappeared. That's not the reason. It's because without Bnei Rachel not having a representation of Bnei Rachel who have that Torah, which he communicated to him, only to him, as he communicated that original Torah only to Yosef, they cannot survive. We find later in the Parsha, when Yaakov was going down to Egypt with the 70 individuals, the 70 descendants, the Torah tells us, Yehuda shalach lefonav el Yosef. He sent Yehuda before him to Yosef, lahoros lefonav, Goshna. Vayavo Eretz Goshen. He sent him before him to instruct him before him in Goshen. What instruction did Yosef need? He sent Yehuda before him to Goshen, lahoros lefonav. So Rashi cites two interpretations. Medrash Agoda, lahoros lefonav. What does it mean? Lahoros, l'sakino beis Talmud, shemisham teitze horo. To set up what we call a beis medrash, a location where they're going to study Torah, and that will be the location where all halachic rulings will emanate from. The Torah will emanate from there. So it seems to be difficult. If Yosef is the Ben Zekunim, Yosef is the wisest and the most brilliant of his children, and Yosef, even in exile, he did not forget any of his Torah, although he had no support system. What Yosef wasn't qualified to set up this location, where ultimately will be the location of spirituality, where they would study Torah. Why did he have to send Yehuda? Why did he have to send Yehuda? As we're explaining, what exactly is the role of Yosef or Bnei Rachel, and what is the role of the Bnei Leah? The role of Yosef and Binyamin is to create physical environment to be able to accommodate Torah. That's the physical environment. Not to contend directly with the spirituality of Klal Yisrael. Who deals with directly with the spirituality of Klal Yisrael? This is the children of Leah. Yisachar is Torah. Levi is the officiant. Yehuda is kingship. What is Yehuda? Yehuda is the king. The king is the final word. In what context? The final word, even within the context of spirituality. We read at the end of Zosah Brocha that because Yehuda had accepted upon himself an excommunication conditionally, that if he does not bring back Binyamin, he will be excommunicated even from the world to come. So Moshe Rabbeinu, before he passed away, he prayed for Yehuda that he should be reinstated into the world to come. His neshama was not admitted into Yeshiva Shel Mala, into the heavenly yeshiva, where they study Torah. And as he prayed, he was reinstated at various stages. At first, he was outside. Then he was admitted. But because of the excommunication which he accepted upon himself, the Gemara tells us he wasn't able to comprehend what the discussion of Torah was in the world to come. Then he prayed further. He was able to understand it. But the final word in Torah was not Yehuda. Until finally, the Shmaitza Libe de Hilsa, the final word, Yehuda was, his position was accepted as the final word. Why did Yehuda's position have to be accepted as the final word? So you see clearly that since he's the Melech, since he's the king, king is not only kingship within the physical, he's even the final word within the spiritual realm. He's the king. Therefore, when it came to set up the study location, where from there all halachic rulings will emanate from Klal Yisrael, it's Yehuda, it's not Yosef. Regardless of Yosef's dimension of understanding of Torah. But who has the final word? Who's the one who's responsible directly for the Torah itself? It's Yehuda, it's not Yosef. Yosef is his responsibility to create the infrastructure for Torah. But the actual location where Torah will emanate from, at what level of quality, at what capacity, this is Yehuda's responsibility. Now we see something very interesting. We find, the Gemara tells us that who was the host of the Shekhinah in the Beis HaMikdash, in the temple? Binyamin. Binyamin, the Oron was in the portion of Binyamin, which is Ben Rochel, which is the son of Rochel. Why was he chosen over all the other children? Why in his portion? Yehuda was also there, because it says the location was Yehuda and Binyamin. And it says there was a strip that went out, but the location of the Holy of Holies, where the ark was positioned, was in the portion of Binyamin. Why Binyamin? Why not Yehuda? Yehuda is the spirituality. Could you have a greater person who's directly connected to the spirituality of Klal Yisrael than Yehuda? As we're saying now, to set up the Beis Ulpana, the Beis Talmud, the location where halacha decisions will emanate from, it's Yehuda. He's the one who set that. Why Binyamin? Binyamin is the physicality. Now, what does it mean he set up the Beis HaTalmud? Meaning he had created, he inculcated in the location that there should be a siyata d'shmaya, there should be a divine assistance, that when his father goes there, all the channels of spirituality are open. There he addressed the channels of spirituality. Binyamin being the host of the divine presence, the Shekhinah, that's location-wise. Again, he is the location, that's the physicality. He's the independent, is independent of everything. God's presence is all-encompassing. That's Shekhinah. Here, the Beis Talmud, that the location should have the capacity. When Yaakov comes there, every channel of spirituality is available to him. So that's the spirituality we're dealing with. In terms of the location where the Aron, where the arks was situated, that's the domicile. That's the residence. For that's Binyamin. That's providing the physical to accommodate the spiritual. Over here, when Yehuda was recounting what his father had said to him, when we wanted to bring Binyamin back, which the viceroy had requested or had demanded, our father, your servant, said to us, Atem yadatem, but you know, Kishnaim yoldu li ishti. My wife had born for me 2 children. Over here, Rachel is referred to as Ishti, his wife. Leah was also his wife, right? There were 2 wives and there were 2 concubines. So why does he say, he refers to Rachel as Ishti, my wife? So over here he explains, the Ramban, which wife did he intend to take? Willingly. Rachel, only one wife. There was only one wife that I was interested in marrying. Only Rachel. It was only as a result of the deception of Lavan did Leah become his wife. Once she was taken, he did not divorce her, send her off. But in terms of Ishti, which was intentional, where he wanted to marry her, there was only one wife. The only wife that it was agreeable to marry, there were only 2. And my love to them is as if they're my only children. And the other children are like children of concubines. This is Yehuda speaking. Yaakov was open. That he favored the children of Rachel over the children of Leah, because the relationship between how Leah came about and how Rachel came about was a different level of relationship. So relatively speaking, the children of Leah are the equivalent of children of concubines. And since his brother had died, it's as if his only child is alive. He only has one surviving child. So this is how the Ramban explains this is the Ishti. Why he says Ishti. We find that when they were going down to Egypt, the Torah goes and enumerates the 70 individuals who went down to Egypt. So first it speaks about the children of Leah, and then it speaks about the children of Rachel. But after it speaks about the children of Leah, it says, these are the children of the concubines of Leah. Then it says, B'nei Rachel Eshes Yaakov, Yosef Binyamin. So again, over there, when it speaks about the children of Rachel, only Rachel is referred to as Eshes Yaakov. This is similar to what Yehuda had said. 2 children were born, Li'ishti, to my wife. So the Ramban explains, what does Ishti mean? Ishti means that I took her willingly. I only took one wife willingly. But when it speaks about B'nei Rachel Eshes Yaakov, the children of Rachel, the wife of Yaakov, Yosef Binyamin. So why is she referred to as Eshes Yaakov? So over here, the Siforno explains B'nei Rachel Eshes Yaakov, Shohoisa Ika Kavanoso, because that was his original intent. Who did he want to marry? Similar to the Ramban. B'chein mimeno noldu Yosef Binyamin, and from her, the wife who he intended, he wanted to marry, Yosef and Binyamin were born. Now, this is what the Siforno says. Shoyumu'ulim b'shvotim. They were the most exceptional of all the tribes. Saying something interesting. Why were they so exceptional? Because this is the woman who he really wanted to marry. This was his true mate. When he had come, and he saw Rachel coming with the flock, he immediately understood, this is his what? This is his zivug. This is his mate. And it says he cried. After he kissed her, he cried because he saw ultimately she would not be buried with him. But they were Ulam Shebishvatim, Ka'amrim Zal. In what way do we see they were exceptional? So he cites the Gemara, Roy ho Yosef sheyetzu mimenu shnei mosei shvotim ki Yaakov. Yosef, his dimension of spirituality was so exceptional that he was qualified to father 12 tribes as his father Yaakov. That's how great he was. But why was he so great? Because he was the child of the woman who Yaakov wanted to marry. Understood that that was the one who was fully compatible to him, spiritually speaking. And what was so special about Binyamin? Omram Zala Binyamin Shemes Betchush Nochos. Why did Binyamin pass away? The Gemara tells us that 4 people never sinned in their lives. One of the people never sinned in their lives was Binyamin. So why did he die? Because of the story with the Nochash, the original snake, the story of the Garden of Eden. Because of the impurity of the snake. That's the only reason why he died. But Binyamin never sinned in his life. So why did he say, well, he was an exceptional tzaddik? You know why he never sinned? Because he was the son of Yaakov, who was born from the wife that he was interested in taking. That's why the Ulam Shebishvatim. Yosef, we see his dimension. He was equivalent of his father. He was qualified to father 12 tribes. He didn't father 12 tribes. Why? As the Gemara tells us, because he lost 10 droplets of semen. For each droplet of semen, he lost a tribe. But 2 of his children, although they were grandchildren of Yaakov, Avinu, Ephraim and Menashe, Keruvim and Shimon, Yuli, they were the equivalent. They were equivalent of tribes, although they were the grandchildren. But why did he have such a dimension of spirituality? Because it was Eshes Yaakov, because she was the true wife of Yaakov. And why did Binyamin merit to be so spiritual that he never sinned in his life? Again, because he was the son of Eshes Yaakov. Because he was the son of the one who was meant to be Yaakov's, so his dimension of spirituality was of a unique level that he never sinned. That's the level of clarity which he was endowed with, or his potential that he never sinned. When he finally reveals himself to his brothers, Yosef, he says, Vayome Yosef el Echov, Ani Yosef. Ha'odu Avichoi. And the first thing he says is, my father's still alive. Because they told him he was alive. So Sifarno explains, he questioned whether he should believe them. So he says, he actually may have been also alive. Because understanding the nature of relationship which Yosef had with his father, he couldn't believe that his father was able to survive the pain. That Yaakov was still alive, even though they told him. But he wasn't really sure whether he was alive. So he asked him, is it true that he's really alive? That's why he asked him, Avichoi. Because what kind of question is it? Did they go back to Canaan to know whether he's alive or not? So what the pasuk, the way the Sforno is explaining, he questioned the authenticity of the original statement, the integrity of the statement. Is he really alive? How is it possible, being so close with him, that he's able to survive that pain? Vayom Yosef el Echov, Yeshuno Elai, come close, Vayigashu. Vayom ani Yosef achichem. He says, I am Yosef, your brother, who you sold me to Egypt. Now, it's interesting. Yosef already said in the previous post, Ani Yosef. So he already identified himself, Ani Yosef. And now, it says they were like dumbfounded. They were overwhelmed with shame. Vayom Yosef Elachov. Geshu Elai Vayomer Ani Yosef Achichem. Now he says Ani Yosef, your brother. Before he just says Ani Yosef. First of all, he didn't say Ani Yosef, your brother. Just said I am Yosef. When he saw they were overwhelmed with shame, he says Ani Yosef Achichem. I'm Yosef, your brother. Hashem Achartem Osi Mitzrayim. You sold me to Egypt. Now over here, the Or Chaim HaKodesh says something very interesting. And he asks, why did he have to mention twice Ani Yosef? He said, the first time he said Ani Yosef, and the second time he said Ani Yosef. What do he have to repeat himself? And in addition, the second time he repeated himself, he says Ani Yosef Achichem. I'm Yosef, your brother. What do you have to add? Brother, which you sold me to Egypt. So the Or Chaim explains, Tam shechos loma pam beis Ani Yosef letzad sherosh lo anu chashash leidvorim. Initially they didn't respond. When he said, I am Yosef, they didn't respond. So he didn't know exactly how to take it. Why didn't they respond? Either because they were afraid to say anything. Of course, why? What happens? You catch a thief red-handed. Can't say anything. He's like stunned. Or maybe it's not because they were stunned, but because they really didn't believe him. So they remained silent. He wasn't sure exactly why they didn't respond. Was it out of shame, like catching the thief red-handed? Or was it because they're not responding because they really question whether they believe him? He says, maybe the reason why you didn't respond is because you're fearful and you're overwhelmed and ashamed. Now this is important. I am Yosef, your brother. Forget the past. Consider it like it never happened. I have the feeling to you like a brother. So because I have the feeling to a brother, you have no reason to be ashamed about the past. Now this is the point I want to speak about. He said, I am your brother who you sold. So he's juxtaposing your brother to who you sold. Could you imagine? You know, the Midrash tells us that when his brother sold him to slavery, he was sold for 20 coins, 20 silver coins. So the Midrash asks, his level of beauty was one of a kind. How come he only fetched 20 coins? Firstly, when they pulled him out of the pit, he was totally naked. They stripped his clothing off of him. And he was white as a corpse because they didn't realize that in the pit, it was a snake pit. And he was terrified. He saw the snakes, the scorpions. So regardless of how beautiful he was when he was equivalent of alive, but look what he looks like. Therefore, he fetched a very low price. And he begged, as it said in last week's Parsha. What did Reuven say to his brothers when they started to argue among themselves? Maybe the reason why God is punishing us, because we were cruel. When our brother pleaded with us, we didn't listen. You understand? He pleaded for his life. In order to plead for your life, and then they're hard, stone-hearted, and calloused, and they just sell you off. I mean, it's a level of trauma which is not to be believed. How could you not be affected by this? He says, even when you sold me, when you behaved heartlessly to me, I still felt brotherly love for you. You know what this means? Therefore, he says, even at the time when you sold me, regardless of the way you treated me, which was a level of cruelty and heartlessness, I still felt brotherly feeling towards you. This is what he's saying to them. Now, does it mean he loved them? How could you love them? It's impossible. They're selling, they want to kill you. acting with a level of cruelty, but he said, nevertheless, even then, I still felt a brotherliness towards you. That's what he's saying. It tells you a lot about Yosef. We had mentioned that what exactly was Yosef's role in Egypt. Yosef understood. Why was he immediately elevated to viceroy? It's unheard of. And why did God allow him to interpret the dreams where the dreams had to do with sustenance, and he's in control of the purse strings of Egypt? And he's even more powerful than the king of Egypt. Paro understands that without Yosef, they will not survive the famine. Even when they store the grain, Yosef has to administer the grain, how it's sold, how it's dispersed, and how the money is actually secured, which is the financial backbone of Egypt. He knew that. Yosef asked himself a question, but why? Why did God elevate me? Why did God put me into this position of power? He understood from the very beginning. He understood what was his destiny. His destiny was to provide the location, the domicile for Klal Yisrael, that when they go to Egypt, they will be secure. Materially secure, spiritually secure, despite the perversions of Egypt, despite the paganism of Egypt, despite the abominations of Egypt. It doesn't make a difference. Being in that position, he secured the best location. They were set off to themselves. Yaakov did nothing to do with the Egyptians because of what they represented. And Yaakov was protected. His family was protected. They lived in a different part of Egypt. Yosef understood this. Because why else did God put him in this position? We had mentioned at one time, Yosef initially had believed that the dreams were prophecy, and that's why he had to share the dreams with his brothers. Ultimately, you're going to bow to me. And it was within the context of what? Of cows and grain. Sheaves. Sheaves of wheat. Meaning, you will need me. You will have to come on to me. I will be your sustainer. You will bow to me. Which ultimately did happen. They did. When they came to Egypt, they bowed before him. I will be your provider. That's what Yosef was saying. What happens when he's thrown into the snake pit? What does he think for a moment? He thinks, evidently, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe what I dreamt was not really prophecy. Maybe it was delusions of grandeur. Maybe it was my own arrogance, my own ego. Allowed me to believe that I'm going to dominate my brothers. And maybe they were right. So what does God do? Has him thrown into a snake pit, which humanly, it's impossible to survive. God performs a miracle for him. What miracle does he perform? He doesn't die. He's terrified, but he doesn't die. What is God saying to Yosef in the pit? Although you don't understand right now what your destiny will be, but factually, I'm with you in the pit. Because otherwise you should have died from the scorpions and the snakes in the pit. Finally, he sold to an Arab caravan. Normally, the caravan carries what? Naphtha, foul-smelling resins. And this is unusual. The cargo that they're transporting are perfumes, waxes, resins, which have beautiful fragrances. Hashem says, I'm with you. I don't want you to be in a position that you have to suffer till you get to Egypt, to be harmed by these foul-smelling resins. Again, I'm with you. Yosef still doesn't understand where it's leading. He's finally, he sold to Sarat Abochim, to the minister of execution or meat purveyors. Immediately rises to power. It's positive. All of a sudden he's accused of trying to what? To rape his master's wife. Thrown into the pit, into the dungeon. He's on a roller coaster, Yosef. The peaks, the valleys, where is this all going? Then he meets the two ministers of Egypt in prison. They have dreams. He interprets their dreams, He would have been released after 10 years, spends another 2 years. Where's this heading? He's not sure where it's heading. But he has total emunah and bitochon and faith in God, wherever it's heading. But ultimately, I will arrive. The moment the 2 years were up, immediately Paro begins dreaming. There's no one in Egypt who can interpret the dreams. In a moment, he's rushed out of the dungeon. Paro presents his dream. Within moments, interprets the dream with all of the solutions, and he's catapulted. A meteoric rise to be the viceroy of Egypt, more powerful than Paro. It's unheard of. What does it say? God says, that's your responsibility. You will control the world, and why does the world exist? The world exists for Klal Yisrael. Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim v'ha'aretz. This world was created for the Jewish people, ultimately to arrive at Sinai, to say Nasa v'nishma, to become the Goy Kodosh, the holy nation, to become the Am Hashem, to become the Mamlechus Kohanim. You will make that your input, your participation of being the viceroy, being the sustainer, the provider, you will be the catalyst to bring that all about. Now Yosef understands where he is at. So Yosef is viceroy. He understands it's all about, but factually, Yosef is only human. To be able to be a proper provider, selfless provider for your family, but there's a history, a very painful history, a traumatic history. His brothers were heartless. Although intellectually I understand what my role is, but I understood what they did to me. What did they do to me? So the way the Or HaChaim is explaining it, he's saying to his brothers, even when you sold me into slavery and you treated me cruelly, I am Yosef Achichem Shemachartem. Even when you sold me into slavery, I still felt a brotherly connection to you. Because I felt that brotherly connection, now that I see how the events unfolded, there's no blockage. I'm able to what? To deal fully responsibly, selflessly, to be the provider. So we see, on this we see something exceptional on Yosef's part. Even when he was sold, the way the Or HaChaim was learning, Ani Yosef Achichem Hashem Achartem, which you sold me into slavery. Even at the time of slavery, we're Achichem. However, we see that Yosef, the Torah tells us, he had 2 sons before the famine began. His first son was Menashe, his second son was Ephraim. Ephraim Menashe. Why did he name Ephraim Menashe? First one was Menashe, because God caused me to forget all the angst and all the suffering that I had experienced prior in my father's household. God caused me to forget my father's household. What do you mean? He didn't remember what happened. Meaning all the pain and all the strife and all the animosity that was between him and his father and his family somehow totally dissipated. It's a miracle. As a human being, if a person was betrayed, and worse than being betrayed, you can't remove it from your emotion. What do you do? How do you get it out of your system? Yosef realized somehow it just dissipated. That itself, he thanked God. Why did he thank God for that? And if you have that pain in your heart because of what happened in the past, God caused me to forget all that strife, all that angst, and from my father's household. All the negative experience of the past was somehow, they disappeared. Intellectually you remembered them, but the negative feeling wasn't there. What was that a confirmation? Now he'll be able to succeed fully in his role as the provider. Because if there would have been that interference, that emotional interference, that I still feel the pain of the past, he couldn't be the proper provider. Couldn't be. So that it allowed itself, caused it to dissipate, He was thankful. Now Hashem is saying, now you're qualified to be the full provider, to function in the capacity that you were meant to function. Ephraim, Kifrani Elokim Be'eretz Onyi. God caused me to thrive. Now thriving has value. A person is a miser. He has all the money in the world. He could do endless good, but he's a miser. What's the good of all the good? Man says, but I can't help myself. I'm a miser. So when did he express his thanks for his success, that he thrived materially in the land of his affliction? It's only after he named the first one Menashe. I mean, once God caused the negative feeling to dissipate, and I don't feel negative towards my brothers or towards my family, and I have a positive feeling, now the bracha has value. Now that I've thrived materially, now I'm able to be fully functional, to be able to be the proper provider and to guarantee the eternity of Klal Yisrael. This is what he was saying. The Torah tells us after Yaakov became aware that Yosef was alive, he had said, Elcho ve'erena b'terem omus. I will go and see him before I die. Before I pass away, I have to see Yosef. Vayisa Yisrael v'chol asher lo v'yovo be'ereshava. Yisrael traveled, which is Yaakov, and all what he possessed, and they came to Beersheba. Vayisa Yisrael. So over here, the Balaturim, a little further. Vayom Elokim liYisrael b'marus halaylo. Elokim said to Yisrael in the vision of the night, Vayom Yaakov, Yaakov. So over here, the Balaturim says, liYisrael b'marus halaylo, Zayin Tagim Bishim. On the sin of Yisrael, the 7 crowns. 7 in the Torah, if you take a look, they're like little crowns on the letters of the Torah. On the sin of Yisrael, the 7 crowns. What did the 7 crowns, what did they signify? What is the symbolism of the 7 crowns? Al Shem Ki Sheva Yibol Tzadik V'kom. Because a tzaddik falls 7 times, but after the tzaddik falls 7 times, he comes and he's erect, he doesn't fall again. That's a verse of Mishlei in Proverbs. Ki Sheva Yibol Tzadik V'kom. Shebo Olav Zayin Tzoros. He experienced 7 painful levels of suffering. V'nitzel mehem. And he was saved from every one of them. What are the 7? So he enumerates it. Esav, he had his issue with his brother who wanted to love on. Maloch, the angel that he battled with. Dinah was raped. And was Yosef. Shimon was taken captive until they came back. Yaakov believed maybe Shimon was killed. Binyamin. The 7th was Binyamin. Ki Sheva Yipol Tzadik. The tzaddik has, after tzaddik experiences 7 tragedies, he doesn't fall again. He will rise. He rises never to fall again. So what does the meaning of going to Egypt? Going to Egypt doesn't mean, even though we became idolaters, we became pagans there. Yaakov Avinu understood now, from now it's only upward. Even though it looks like we're going into the valley and we have setbacks, regardless of the setbacks, we're going forward. The setback is a necessity to go forward. This is the Kur HaBarzel. This is the smelter. Egypt was the smelter to extract from us the impurities through the suffering that we should be able to stand at Sinai 50 days after we leave Egypt, after 210 years. So that's what signifies the 7 tragedies of Yaakov's life are signified through the 7 crowns on the sin of Yisrael. So he was confident now because of that. Now he stands erectly. We find that when Yaakov, he prepared, when he understood that Esav's coming with 400 men, he's coming towards him, and it could have been a battle to the death. And it says he prepared for three things. One of the things he prepared for was for war. So when he ran towards Esav, when he saw Esav coming from a distance, it says he ran towards him, and he prostrated himself 7 times. And after he prostrated him 7 times, he stood up to meet him face to face. So over there, the Balaturim cites the same pasuk. Ki Sheva Yipul Tzadik. What did Yaakov prostrate himself 7 times? Why not 6 times? Why not 5 times? Why not 10 times? The answer was Yaakov understood. If the tzaddik is humiliated before the Rasha 7 times, after that he will be victorious. A guaranteed victory, but you have to be the tzaddik. Yaakov understood he was a tzaddik, but you never know. But maybe Esav will have the upper hand by humiliating himself, prostrating himself 7 times before Esav, and then he stood up. He already met all the criteria of now he stands erectly. He doesn't fall any longer. So it was intentional. That he bowed and prostrated 7 times was that what follows the 7 is become. Over here, this wasn't by his choice. The 7 tragedies in his life, the 7 sorrows that he had. Now he's going to Egypt. You think this is the end? He's going to land the Shtufi Zima. They're immersed in promiscuity. How do you have Kedusha in that location? We have a Masorah. We have a tradition. Tzadik Yipol, Tzadik Sheva, become. The Tzadik falls 7 times, he stands. How will it work out? I don't know what's going to work, but it's going to work out. Similar to being the snake's pit and surviving the snake's pit. God says, I'm with you, but where's it going to end? I don't know where it's going to end, but it's going to end good. Now I'm finally sold into slavery. And normally the caravan carries foul-smelling resins. And instead of that, they're perfumes and resins that have a positive fragrance. What is Hashem saying? Although you think you're going into the oblivion, Hashem says, I'm holding your hand. I'm with you. So if you're able to internalize that reality, it's blind faith. But if you have trust, it's not a problem. Hashem, I trust you. Your father holds your hand, and he knows the way through the dark. But your father's been through it 1,000 times, and he could lead you. Although you can't see, but because of the implicit trust that a child has in his father, doesn't work for a moment, but he can't see where he's going. But if the father's holding the child's hand, he's not worried. Yosef was a level of trust in Hashem. Hashem's holding his hand. Hashem says, I'm with you. But where are we going? It's not a question, where am I going? Hashem's with me. God's with you. You fear nothing. Nothing. Because you have trust. And that's what Hashem gave. Yaakov understood. I'm going to Egypt. Where's it going? It's Golus. What's Golus? Suffering. Negative influences. Sheva Yibul Tzadik become. The Tzadik may fall 7, but after 7, you rise erectly, permanently, never to fall again. But how could it be? It's not a problem. That's not the issue. I have been Masorah 7 times. I've been through it. Now I'm going. Now it's only become. Now I'm standing erectly. And as a result of this is why Egypt, regardless of what it was the Kura Barzel, but ultimately, within a short period of time, 50 days, we stood at Sinai and we declared Nasa V'Nishma.